Sitting here with me today in the Sincat television station in Reno, Nevada, is a very noble artist who has assuredly awakened the sentiments of mankind through the beauty of his work, and that is the acclaimed artist Ivan Lloyd. Welcome to Reno.
Thank you very much.
I assume that this is your first time in Reno?
No, I've been here many times.
And you didn't look us up? You didn't paint my portrait? When were you here in Reno last?
About 1982.
Was there one person perhaps driving
passing
really had a profound impact on your life in this decision to pursue?
Not really. During the 60s, when I first started working advertising, I think that Bob Dylan and Timothy Leary and things came out, and at my age, we were sort of told or advised to go and give up your work and go travel around the world, which is what I did. And at 18, I gave up a promising career in advertising, and I'm still traveling almost. I went, instead of just going for 6 months to Europe, I just continued on to Greece and over to North Africa, and I lived there for 7 years painting. And to survive, at first my family sent me some money for the first few months. And after a while, I said, well, now it's time to come home and resume your career. And
in advertising? In
advertising, or in business, or whatever. Or opening restaurants. Western art, especially European, is creating a form and an illusion on the canvas with the use of light coming from one direction and casting a shadow. So, and it's what you call representational art. And the Catholic and Christian art made great use of that in their portrayals of the Last Supper and all the religious art. When Muhammad came, he forbade the use of art for representing the human form. So Islamic art became very, very powerful in using geometry and mathematics in a form of artistic expression, and all portraits were forbidden, and to this day in extreme Islamic states you won't see any representation of the human form or even animals. But consequently artistic expression became very highly developed in their architecture and in the interior of mosques and such like that.
They say that Greece is the birthplace of the artistic civilization. You said you went to Greece. Did Greece itself have, and the Greek culture and art, have any influence in shaping your individual style?
I would actually not at all.
Not at all?
Greek architecture is great, of course, and you're correct. It's almost like the barometer of what's accepted beauty is the Greek sculpture and art. But of course, as we look in this day and age at history, whoever is the conqueror writes history. And so really, in North Africa and Africa, that form of art, which is hardly appreciated in this country, or in the world, Western art, is such a huge vast of information that we don't seem to appreciate, because we're trained to look at Greek and the basis of Greek beauty, and Western art is based on Greece civilization.
You were saying that earlier that then you went on to, I guess maybe you got tired of being a starving artist in Tunisia or wherever, and then you went and became a designer for stage productions like My Fair Lady. And
oh, that happened a lot later. I was very interested in religion, and I traveled across North Africa, and in India I just wherever I traveled, I painted different scenes from the country and just survived selling paintings as I was going along. But it wasn't until I met someone that asked me to paint scenes, to come to America to paint backdrops and set design and stuff.
So you pretty much, for your early development, focused on different cultures, primarily religious cultures, and then one day you wake up in Hollywood?
Yeah, well, yes, something like that.
Was there a message being given to you, or?
It was.
Because I understand you worked with George Cukor.
No, this is not true.
Who was that liar that told me that?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I think it was before my time. No, I painted a lot of sets and worked with some of the early designers of early musicals like The Wizard of Oz and Destry Writes Again, but they would come in and help us with the notes and visuals that they used, and we would recreate the sets. But that was for the Southern Arizona Light Opera Company in Tucson. So,
And then after that, did you go back to religious art or historical art, or?
Not really. I designed haunted houses for several years, and in Tucson, and that went to different malls in Atlanta and Phoenix and around, in Vegas even.
Haunted houses?
Haunted houses, yes. I did that for many years. Designed every room.
One day you woke up and said, I want to design haunted houses?
Well, when you're a painter, you'll be working on a set and someone will come up to you and say, would you like a job painting this? And you kind of go, okay, that's a good idea. So basically painters can make a very good living, but you never know what your next job is in a way, or how long it will last. So if you do a good job on a set, a painting, or always when you're doing something, someone will come and offer you the next assignment, say. And so it goes on. And I did haunted houses for 5 years, designing the interiors.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at some. Can we focus the camera on this painting, perhaps? Do we have a good shot of this painting? Could you tell us a little bit about, first of all, the story about this, what this depicts? I mean, for me, I can see you're Islamic. It also looks like the Indian, so I'm not so sure what the story would exactly detail.
Okay, in the Baha'i faith, the first heroine really is Tahereh.
The Baha'i faith began in Iran.
It began in Iran.
Which is predominantly an Islamic country.
Yes, I would say pretty well. A Shiite country, which is a branch of Islam. As Islam broke up into two different distinct sects. The followers of the Shiite Islam really believe in the descendants of Muhammad as really the people with the authority to interpretate the laws and carry on the message, as opposed to elected officials, which is the Sunni belief. Shiite Islam spread over more towards the east and India, so there's a lot more colorful Indian influence, I would say. Anyway, Tahereh, who I depicted here in the center.
Tahereh was the famous heroine.
Famous heroine. She was a poet.
In the 1800s.
Yes. She believed in the manifestation of the Bab without meeting him, because, again, one of his prayers appeared to her in a dream or a vision, and she declared herself as a believer in the Bab.
She was a poetress.
And she was a famous poetress, and she was very, very knowledgeable in the Islamic scriptures, and she was very eloquent. She traveled all over Baghdad and the Ottoman Empire, and teaching the equality of women. And this was at a time when, of course, they were veiled there, but even in America, women didn't have the vote. So she was, even before the suffragette movement. So in a sense, this is where the suffragette movement starts.
May I ask, if she is the central heroine of this painting because of her story, why are all the other women's faces seen, but her back is towards us in the painting? Is there a specific reason why you designed it that way?
Actually, I tend to think of this as Tahereh here. But actually, initially, she's on the rooftop teaching women, so they would be unveiled here. And this is the skyline of Mashhad, which is the holy city in the north of Iran, just near Afghanistan.
I'm just so overwhelmed by the color. I mean, you say earlier that you don't really pay much attention to color. This color just must appear then, because it's just so vibrant.
Yeah, I think color just confuses you if you want to match this color with that. So again, I think that by getting oneself out of the process, I don't think about it. It just it's bright. That's all I know.
We haven't. This is another picture that I'm going to switch here. That is in the same historical category, correct? This is also this woman you're talking about, Tahereh.
Yeah. Well, if I... Okay.
Do you want this back?
Just for a second, if I may say this, she is teaching women. This is a woman from India. This is in, say, Saudi Arabia. This woman's from Iran. This woman's from Russia. And this woman's, in the costumes, of Iraq. And she's teaching them equality of men and women, which was not acceptable to the Islamic faith.
And which is one of the principles of Baha'i
Which
faith.
is the
equality
one
men
of the
and women.
basic tenets of the Baha'i faith.
So then this is the concluding story of her saga?
Yes, consequently she was strangled in Tehran by the order of the mullahs, and this is Tehran. I use this as two minarets which are in Tehran. One's going this way and one's going that way down the minaret, which tells you that that is Tehran.
The blue and the green is just so striking. Does it? Can you see this in the audience? This is just so striking. This blue with this green, and then suddenly the central figure in white.
She did well. That's because I eliminated orange. I guess that in my red, which makes it look interesting color-wise. But it's purely the admittance of a color. But she knew that they were going to strangle her because of her outspoken views, and she dressed on her in a white wedding gown, and rode to the garden on a horse. What's the beauty of documenting this faith at the moment? I feel very privileged because we have a photograph of this place, this garden where she was strangled. So we know the trees and the buildings looked exactly like that as she was strangled. And they were digging a well. We have certain information that they were digging a well at the time, that they were drunk, and I tend to put, and that she was staying with a student, and that he witnessed it and hid her body in a well so that her body wouldn't be defiled.
So
afterwards.
the story is behind your paintings, just for those who never heard the story, this was a woman in a country where women really basically had very little rights, perhaps except for marriage and childbirth and cooking and cleaning. She converted from Islam to a new religion, and a religion that proposed and propounded the emancipation of women and equality of men and women, and for that reason she was murdered.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
exactly. But
well, you certainly can't call this decorative art.
It isn't exactly.
Yes,
and
this is wonderful.
They're in between. This is a triptych, in fact. In between those two is
another
the center one.
This one?
Yes.
If I bring this out, it might be easier. Oh, this is like romper room, huh? We're putting this up here.
Yeah.
Okay, here, give me that.
A triptych is a Russian concept from the Byzantine era, where they would, where again there was religious persecution, where they would put both paintings on either side of the main altarpiece and fold it in to protect it so they could travel with it to wherever they were going. So this is the centerpiece. That first painting goes on this side. And so it's
okay.
a story. So
Let's just see what you're talking about. So why don't you go over there, and you hold it over there. We'll be a little graceful. Don't trip over the wire. We know you're an artist and not a ballet dancer, but nevertheless. And I'll hold this here. So can the camera get it?
This is a typical triptych.
So this would basically be like a mini mural.
Well, actually, these are prints of an original painting, or three original paintings. That the center one is 6 foot by 8 foot, and the two on the end
beautiful.
are about 6 foot square.
Let's move on. Let's move on, because I know these are this painting I actually find just absolutely fascinating. Primarily because I was so overwhelmed by it, I bought it and held it in, hung it in my living room. I don't know if I can get this off, so. It's on there pretty tight, and I don't want to take up the time. Well, here we go. But would you tell us a little bit about this painting? This, out of all the paintings I have seen, this was just one of the ones that fascinated me the most, and it's the only one I could afford. Now, I was just in Israel, so I think I recognize that this is in Akka. Now, because I know you just don't do historical art, can we go to this painting in the back, which is sort of fascinated people I know sitting in the audience because it's just so striking. You have a series. I'm going to move this easel out a little bit so perhaps it will be a little bit more clear. You have a series on women.
That was a certain charm because there are no real references except for the women behind and the building itself. she just came out of the canvas. It took me a long time to get the patterns so that they look realistic. And so it's clumsier in a sense than something that you use a reference for, but it has some sort of more of a soul because it's between me and the canvas, and it develops.
Beautiful. And this one, now where's the other woman? We're a little buried behind here, but this is a very, absolutely incredibly gorgeous painting. Can you get the camera into there? If I move all of this out of the way. Can you zoom in down there to that woman? How about if I move this chair? Can you see it? Gorgeous. Ivan, would you tell us about this painting?
This is the interior. This is the first Baha'i house of worship in Ishkabad. There are no, very few photographs of it, and there are no paintings of it that I know. And I sent to the archives to get what the interior was like. The interior of this is exactly as it was, as is in the inside. This lady is not. It was just. I saw a reference for someone. I used many different references of one of the building of different, and you know, the writing and stuff and close-ups that I have. But I saw a lady from this period who happened to be called Princess Zenaida, and who's was the richest lady in Russia before the revolution, and her grandson assassinated Rasputin. That's absolutely nothing to do with the painting, really, except that's what I loosely based the costume on, and she's wearing the costume from this 18th century.
Gorgeous, just beautiful. The last painting we actually will talk about for a moment, but I know when people were walking into the studio, everybody was saying to me, what is this painting? Who is that gorgeous child? The story behind this?
I was told that he and Ruhia Khanum used to ride horses every day from Akka to Baji, and so it came to me as an idea to paint him as a young boy on a horse, and we have a photograph of him, just his face, and I got the concept of this. It came to me as an idea, and I thought it would be a lovely paint.